Hello Aries friends, I'm Annie Botticelli and welcome to my video, Aries, August 2020, Astrology Must Knows. We have so much to celebrate this month and Aries placements have some extra yummies to celebrate, including some protection for some of the annoying things that we have to talk about this month, but there are far fewer annoying things to discuss than there are things to celebrate, so let's just get going with the exciting things. So the first thing that we're celebrating has to do with moving out of a time that's been dominated by water placements, which have made yucky angles to the Aries placements, and I know that you with me have been feeling this. June and July are full of this Mercury retrograde and Cancer energy, with those Cancer placements crossing, making difficult angles with your Aries placement. I have a middle degree Aries rising, so I go through this with you together, and I also am a fire sign sun, so I'm getting it on both ends, and I know what it's like. So the first thing we're celebrating in August is that we have just a few more days of Mercury even moving through Cancer. It's pushing out. The retrograde energy for Mercury and Venus is done, and that is exciting. So that cloak of emotion that we've been wading through, that mucky, muddy emotion, for better and worse, but a lot of it has been challenging more than anything, is going to start dispelling, and the planets moving through fellow fire sign Leo are going to start brightening things up, giving momentum, giving optimism, giving flow, and turning your fire energies back on high and full throttle, which is where you like to be. So we're celebrating that. Mercury and Venus ended their retrograde shadow periods at the end of July. So we're also celebrating that because the domain of those two planets is very wide as far as what we have been stalled out on. So now that we're here in August, and I still especially like the energies from July 22nd through July 28th, as we're not really going to get more positive and clear a chunk of time even throughout August, but throughout the end of July and into the beginning of August, and maybe some little pushes throughout August, but really mostly in the beginning of August, there's this amazing momentum to get stuff done, especially in the arenas that had been dominated by Mercury and Venus, like relationships, money, design projects, beauty projects, getting your crazy hair things, getting your physical, whatever you're doing to your physicality that you couldn't really do during the Venus retrogrades, anything having to do with contracts, big sales, big purchases, all of those things start to have more clarity around them. We also have had this heavy energy of the eclipse season. The eclipse season has been a dogger because the Cancer and Capricorn energies for Aries have been making squares, and this has been happening for us for 2 years. So since the beginning or the middle of 2018 when the Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycle started, and now the middle of 2020 when the Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycle is ending, we've been having these aspects that have been showing up in these challenging angles for our placement, and we have been feeling that. I know you all along with me have been having challenges with things with parents, things with life and death, and things with health issues, and things with just all things that you could possibly think of that could be challenging, especially involving home and work and family and your place out in the world and your place in the world and health, and all of these things have been showing up in a huge way. So the other thing now we have to celebrate in August is that the major intensity from those eclipses, we're mostly phasing out of that. Now we may still get some news. Some people will get some boom news, because sometimes 4 to 6 weeks after an eclipse you get a big piece of news, and we are in that spectrum here in August. But the bulk of it, the heaviness, the emotion, the radical changes, that's all shifting now. And not only is it shifting now, it's like ending. It's coming to its closure, this 2-year cycle of all of these challenges. So what I want you to envision this month, if you've ever looked at a baby giraffe being born, if you haven't, just for fun, look up a video on a baby giraffe being born, okay? Because that's the energy of this month. That is you this month. That is what we're going through, which is baby giraffes learn to walk very quickly. They have to, as an evolutionary measure for them to be able to run if a predator is coming. But that process of them being born and then wiggling around on their long legs trying to get their footing in their new normal is what you are doing, is what we are doing this month. We're floundering around a little bit in an awkward way, trying to find our footing, but as the month develops, we're getting our footing more and more from the changes that occurred from the eclipses in our personal lives and from the changes that are in this constant flow from the outer planets being in Capricorn and making conjunctions with each other, Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn. So if you haven't watched my video about coronavirus and the systems breaking down and how astrology explains all of that, I highly recommend you take the time to do it. It's a long video, but it could blow your mind and it could change your life in the way that of you understanding these things. So you can search for Annie Botticelli coronavirus. But the point is that these outer planets, which have been moving through Capricorn, not only have they been affecting the world, they've been making challenging aspects for Aries placements. So we're experiencing this in ways that are even more challenging than some other people who haven't had those difficult angles occurring. So this month is about finding the new normal from the general aspects, from finding the new normal from the personal eclipses, from getting out of the shroud of the emotion and finding the footing with the new life that is forming after these things have changed. And there is a lot of promise and a lot of excitement and a lot of potential glow that can start to be revealed this month as the emotion is phasing out. Because the new eclipse cycle that has begun, the Sagittarius-Gemini cycle, it's all in nice aspects. So now for the whole next year and a half, these beautiful aspects are going to form with Aries placements and the new eclipse cycle. So it's just a whole new cycle opening up, one of more positivity, openness, expansion, and stepping on track in really big ways. So those are all just major, major things to celebrate this month. As if we needed something more to celebrate, we have planets moving through Leo. And what happens when the planets move through Leo? The beautiful trine, the most harmonious aspect of all in astrology, is occurring with the Sun, and then Mercury very soon will get into, very early in the month, will get into Leo, and those planets will be kissing our Aries placements. So expect a lot of extra flow, of some things working out, of things gelling, of creative inspiration, of excitement, of inspiration on any level, and vitality. And, again, we can't ever see in a horoscope what everyone's individual experience of these potentials are going to be. But when we have all of these strands of things that look super positive, it increases the odds of that experience coming through, filtering through your experience in some way or another. So every year at this time, you might notice as the planets get into Leo, making this aspect, that you go on fire in a good way. You can be, like those of you who are writers, those of you who are artists, those of you who are actors, those of you who are just whatever you use your creative energies to do, it just gets turned up really high at this time of year. So look out for that. It's very likely to happen. If you're trying to have kids or something involving children, those types of things are really lighting up this month for Aries as well. And maybe just fun time with your kids or milestones with your kids. So there's definitely a lot of that to look forward to. Something else that's very exciting for Aries to celebrate is that Mars is moving through our sign. Okay, and so although Mars can bring this energy of war to the Aries energy, which is already a little bit edgy sometimes, right? And that is a constant theme that we're going to be looking at between now and the beginning of January 2021 as Mars completes this, direct and then retrograde and then direct cycle through the native sign of Aries, which is our ruler. Mars is our ruler. We have a lot of opportunities, and there's a very good chance, if you understand what this cycle is about and you use it in line with what it's about, that you can have an amazing next 6 months and minimize your frustrations, your anger, and heal those issues, okay? So Mars is how we use our energy. It's our get up and go, it's our ambition, it's our oomph. And when it goes into retrograde, that tends to wane. For many people, that means people get lazy and they get uninterested and uninspired. And so Mars doesn't go retrograde until the second week of September, and it stays such until the middle of November. But the pre-retrograde shadow period began at the very end of July. And every day we go deeper into August, it's setting foot. including some challenging aspects with Mars and Pluto and Saturn, which is one of the icky things we have to talk about, which we'll address when I look at the charts. But and this will factor in even more importantly for Aries, since Mars is in Aries when it makes these challenging aspects. But the theme as the month goes on is going to be about you trying to push for something and trying to do something and it pushing back on you, especially if it's something aggressive. Like if you're trying to aggressively push on something, even if it's someone that did something to you, any aggression that's put out has a chance of being boomeranged back. And so Mars is going to teach us how to better use our energy. It's going to give us a very strong reflection for any unresolved anger issues that we may have. And this often drills down into issues with the liver, okay? Because the liver energetically is where the emotion of anger is housed. And its friend, the gallbladder, where the resentment is. You know, this is all kind of tied up in this energy. So if you are an Aries that still notices that you have anger issues, I mean, Aries energy even in its highest form will be quick to anger, just as part of how energy moves through you. But it's the degree to which you get angry and the degree to which you can pull out of it, and the frequency of the occurrence and the effects on you and the people around you, that you can start to use your healing modalities to modify. Okay, so maybe in your very healed form, you'll see something, you'll get mad, and then you'll just kind of forget all about it, because that's kind of the nature of the energy. It like comes strong and then it dissipates. And that's kind of functional. That's just the way it goes. But what's not functional is when anger is ruining your relationships, anger is ruining your health, you know, you can't resolve your anger and you can't manage your anger, and that's causing problems for you. Those are the types of things that, if that's present, you're going to have extra opportunity to dance with whatever that storyline is over the next 6 months or so. All right, so I highly recommend anger management, counseling, punching pillows, a punching bag. Just don't injure yourself in the punching exertion process, because, you know, that could be part of how an aggressive motion could backlash on you. But the more in meditation and emotional clearing techniques and trauma therapies and all of these things, especially if you do them early, that's why I give these to you early, the more you clear out and the better system you get for anger and stress management when these energies start to kind of push back. And the more you honor when you're trying to do something and it's not working, instead of doing your usual Aries, I'm going to push it through anyway, just pulling back until you're more clear, or pulling back until, you know, the path reveals itself of what you're supposed to be doing with this, whatever it is. You know, that's going to be how you can best use the energy. I've come, as an Aries rising, I've come to love Mars retrograde. I look forward to it. It only happens every 2-ish years. But whenever it happens, I'm like always talking about, well, I cannot wait for Mars to go retrograde, because we get a break. We have the opportunity to get a break from ourselves. It is not easy to be on full throttle all the time. It's exhausting and it's hard. You can't even help it a lot of times with these Aries placements, as I know with you. But Mars retrograde makes people more lazy, and if you don't get on yourself about it, like, why am I so lazy? I shouldn't be lazy. I need to be doing this. I have to do that. I have to take action on this. And there are going to be things you have to follow through that are parts of life. I'm not absolving you from your responsibilities per se with this, but usually Aries has a long list of things that maybe they really don't have to be doing, but they kind of do it anyway. And so if you just let your to-do list whittle down, and when you're feeling lazy and not wanting to do stuff, if you do that cross-reference and say, do I really have to do it? As I'm doing it, is it working or is it pushing back on me? And just navigating through, you can have a really restful, relaxing time. I love vacations for this time, okay? I don't know what the state of the world's going to be like, or if there will be more waves of the coronavirus that we have to be careful of. But vacations, staycations, you know, the energy of just basically doing less, whatever that looks like for you, not taking on big projects, you know, or just doing casual, fun hobby projects that are easy. That is the type of thing that Mars retrograde is really, really good for when you let it be. And it can wind up being productive as long as you take the stance on it that's different than how you usually do it, which isn't forcing, it's just kind of naturally letting it flow. Okay, so let's look at the charts, and I'll show you a little more about these dicey spots to watch out for, plus some saving grace energy that can come after that. Okay, so the first thing, I'll just give you some visuals. We talked about the energies getting into Leo. Mercury will be there. That makes a nice angle here. That's 4 signs away. And that's a 120-degree angle, which is very favorable. We've got Mars cruising through Aries, and that is noticeable. It's going to bump up against your placements over this time, over the next few months and more, depending on your exact placement. Then we've got Venus and transiting North Node, making favorable angles. We didn't talk about this, so let's do that. Venus is completing its circuit through Gemini. It's just it has a little bit more juiciness, but especially those of you towards the end of the sign can get more sweet boosts. But everyone in the Aries spectrum, especially anything involving your expression, your communication, devices, this could be a good time to buy devices, especially towards the beginning of the month, because as the month goes on, Mars rules metal and devices are metal. And I know that between now and January is like too long to expect people to not buy anything. So if you've got to buy something metal, cars or this and that, you're better off doing it out of the actual retrograde. And I still like July 22nd to 28th for things like that too, but you may find some good spots in August to make those purchases. And because the 3rd house here rules cars and it rules devices. And so Venus is moving through here, so the possibility, and this is true for all early, middle, and late degree placements. Don't be confused by the fact that I'm using the early degree chart here, because everything I've spoken about so far has been true for all Aries placements. But let's just show you here how this Venus thing is true for everyone. See, there's middle degree, there's late degree. So everyone in the Aries spectrum has this focus of spending money on 3rd house things, which is communication and transportation, and also money coming through 3rd house, which is ruled by Gemini, and it's in the sign of Gemini. So this can have to do with writing, editing, books, publishing, things like that. So you might see something involving that. If you have to do a launch, this time could be okay for a launch, but just know that as Mars starts to fizzle, your launch efforts may fade for a while. But if you use that fading to kind of reconsider, plan what you're going to do next, reevaluate, and then when Mars goes direct, you kind of blaze forward again, then that could be okay. But anything that you take on this month, this is another must know, you may lose your momentum and lose your drive. So you don't want to take on a big project right now of I've got to keep all this up and I'm going to do this, and be careful with your commitments, because what you're gung-ho about here this month before Mars starts to change out of its phase, you're going to be like, wow, Mars is in Aries and I'm feeling powerful and all of this fire energy is aligning with Aries and I'm all lit up, and now, yes, I can do this, and yes, I'll do that, and yes, I'm going to bring you this, and yes, I'm going to do that. And then as Mars starts to make you lazy, then you're going to be like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I wish I wouldn't have committed to that. So just remember what I'm saying, that as you're doing these things, be super careful with things you commit to that's going to require continued focus or momentum over the upcoming months, because I promise you a vast majority of you are not going to want to follow through with those things when they come. And then you will be glad that I told you to just kind of just be a little more conservative and take the attitude that you may over-deliver instead of over-promise, where you kind of promise this much, and if you wind up bringing that much, that's cool, but you don't want to promise this much because you might wind up bringing this much. Okay, so something else fun that's going on for everyone in the zodiac has to do with this combination of Venus and the North Node. Transiting North Node is showing us keys to our highest expression in this lifetime, our dharma, our life purpose. And when Venus makes that conjunction, it very much has to do with like a harmonious blending of helping us to get on track. Maybe someone, a love in our life, can help us get on track. Maybe money will come to give us a boost with something we think is our highest expression or our destiny, something, a destiny point of something we're supposed to be doing. And in general, something important to know for Aries, and again, this is true for early, middle, and late degree placements, is that over the next year and a half, so between May of 2020 and January of 2022, okay, so it's a little over a year and a half, that transiting North Node is going to be moving through Gemini and moving through the Aries 3rd house. And again, this is early, middle, and late. This is true for, okay? So that means keys to your highest destiny, your life purpose, your ease and grace and dharma are going to be held in the sector of the 3rd house. So this may have to do with writing. This may have to do with getting your writing projects out and finding your voice through other things like that. This may have to do with having support for your writing projects or becoming known in those arenas. It could have to do with more mobility, upgrading your way of communicating through your devices or through your traveling, your cars, your bikes, your whatever. It can have to do with siblings, connecting more with siblings or other relatives that are not your parents or kids. Okay, this third house has a lot of relatives in there. And also just how you communicate versus, I talk about this periodically with Aries when I see this third house aspected, because Aries energies tend to be super direct. Like for me, I get really irritated when people are like avoiding something and they're like kind of pussyfooting around something and they're being, kind of in the backdrop trying to do something when I'm like, just say or do what you got to do here and we'll just figure it out. Aries people tend to appreciate that directness, and we often communicate, right? We tend to communicate the way we want to be communicated with. So sometimes this direct communication can be too direct, too blunt, and not as emotionally, like with not as well developed an emotional IQ for how the other person is experiencing what we're saying. And these are all things that over the next year and a half may bring us more of what we want. If we understand more about the psychology behind how people experience, how we communicate with them, then we're more likely to wind up getting the things that we're requesting from people if we can spend some time in the study. And you can use book resources. I love a book called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg for this. I love, just anything that kind of puts you in the shoes of thinking about how someone is experiencing something that you say or a tone of voice that you use, maybe with some condescension. A lot of times Aries will have their stuff together in a way where someone else doesn't have it together, and they're saying, okay, well, just do this, or why don't you just do this? And so for us, it's like, it just makes sense. But for the person receiving it, they might be experiencing that as feeling like it's condescending, and they may be more likely to not do what we're hoping they'll do because of how it's being presented. So, this transit here that's going to be over the next year and a half, that's very strong this month, and it really gets started in May, is very much about our evolving communication and how we can use it, not just for the sake of itself, but to get to deeper levels of satisfaction within our relationship and fulfillment, and access our coaching ability more rather than our directing ability, to kind of help people step into themselves rather than us just telling them what to do and how to do it. You'll see what I mean more the more that you look at this, okay? So that's something else to note that this month. Now, things to be aware of, must-knows. The first thing is that there are more than twice the amount of challenging aspects this month compared to the sweet ones. And that is going to show up. Not most, but a lot of those aspects are a 150-degree angle, which are awkward angles. So you're going to feel the awkwardness this month. That's part of why I said about this baby giraffe and finding the footing and the awkwardness or whatever. You're going to feel that theme of like, this is awkward, as you're finding the new footing and the new normal. You're going to feel that, okay? So that's a must know. The second thing is that as Mars makes these alignments with Pluto and Saturn in the 90-degree pressure, also I call diamond making aspect, as pressure creates a diamond, right? You're going to feel that. So mark on your calendar the dates 13th and 24th, and know that the days around it, 5 days in either direction. So the 8th through the 29th, essentially all month except for the first week. These aspects, one or the other, have a fair chance to manifest. I am an optimist. I like to frame things in a way to use the alchemy, to create alchemy with challenges that come, and use difficulties to create awesome things. That is what I do. That's what I try to help you do. And there are certain things that can be downright dangerous. I don't want you to fear them, but I want you to be aware of them. This is one of those things. Okay? Actually, these are two of those things. Mars, the god of war, coming into conflict with Saturn, the stern taskmaster, and Pluto, the life and death phoenix rising from the ashes in a challenging angle. Some people are going to flip their lids. They're going to be straight up dangerous, and you want to make sure to protect yourself and avoid those situations. So some must knows for these aspects. Again, these are most highlighted from the 8th through the 29th. The closer you get to the 13th and the 24th, the more they are likely to be intense. Must know. Don't antagonize a crazy person. must know, if you are that person that's on edge and you're feeling antagonized by the world, get help. If you need help with stress management, if you don't trust what you're going to do, if you feel like you're on edge and you might be dangerous to yourself or someone else, try to do things beforehand before these tensions rise. Again, you don't have to be afraid. The vast majority of how this energy is going to manifest isn't going to result in something dangerous for people, but because it increases the odds of accidents, violence, aggression, and just things like that, you want to be aware of it. And this theme of working with anger and healing anger and healing the sources of it from the root, and liver cleansing to take the burden off of the energies that are tend to get backed up, things like this. And having proper outlets that can be productive can prevent problems at this time. Don't tailgate someone this month. They're more likely to slam on the brakes and have you get into an accident. Anything that, like even filing of court cases, filing an official court case towards somebody, like where you're acting aggressively towards them, even if they did something to you. If you're protecting yourself, keep protecting yourself. But if you're filing something where you're saying that person did something to me, notice that this direct action, the energy of Aries is a cardinal energy, and it goes in a finite direction like this. So this energy, when you point, is Aries energy. So when you point at someone and say, that person did that to me, I am going to make sure they don't. That energy, when you point one finger, that all these come back at you, that is an energetic principle that's in strong play during Mars retrograde. So if you have to file something like that, July 22nd through the 28th is going to be better than later because it's more out of the energy. And the earlier part of that, like around the 22nd or something, is, complete, and the 23rd or whatever is completely free of Mars shadow transit. So when you implement something where you're filing, it's better to avoid this Mars retrograde because a lot of times the boomerang effect occurs with a backlash for the aggressor. Now that's good news for you if someone tries to file something aggressively towards you during this time and they don't know any better, because the odds are increased that what they put towards you is going to come back to them. All right, so just kind of know that in case that comes up. So these aspects are happening in the later degrees, and so when Mars gets to these later degrees, that's where the most impact is going to be. So while this will affect everyone in the zodiac and this will affect all Aries, those of you towards the end of the sign are more likely to have extra challenges from these aspects, okay? So just to kind of show you here, the early born are, and this is if you have Aries rising, Aries moon, Aries sun, these are all for you. My Aries report is for you. So the early Aries are basically March born is 0 to 9 degrees. The middle Aries are basically April 1st through 10th, days around there, or 10 to 19 degrees. And the late degree placements, so like April 11th through the rest of the sign, are 20 to 29 degrees. You all, those late degree, April 11th through the rest of the sign and 20 to 29 degrees, are more in this challenging aspect because when these aspects happen in the sky, they're more likely to be lined up with your Aries placement, so it brings it more close and personal to you. It increases the odds of that. But there is some more good news within all of this, okay? So the first thing to know is that the 27th and the 29th, there are some sweet aspects, one of them involving Mercury getting over to here, making a nice aspect with Jupiter. Jupiter's involved here. It's sending cascades. These energies are all kind of sending cascades to each other back and forth. So in the same areas of life that are ruled or are affected by the boom with those square aspects this month are the same areas of life that are going to be kissed by this Mercury Jupiter aspect later and another nice aspect later in the month. Okay, so at least one of those two nice aspects are going to link in with Jupiter here. And so anything that was a challenge for the month has an increased chance in having a resolution or a rainbow at the end of the storm with, the squares being the storm, and then these aspects being, or at least the Mercury-Jupiter one being the rainbow with a possible pot of gold at the end of it, okay? So you can see there's a potential storyline of these conflicts coming up here, but there's also this potential storyline of resolution coming, and the more work you do to try to seek the resolution, the more likely that it will happen. So this, so you can see that this area that's being affected, the 10th house is being affected for early, middle, and late degree placements with that boom. And so that's your work sector. Okay, so there's more of a chance for things involving your work or things with father or father figures or anything having to do with your place out in the world to have these conflicts and then have the resolution. All right. Okay, so one other piece here that I want to talk about has to do with this beautiful star goddess, Pallas Athena. She's part of this whole lineup here. She moves quicker than these do. Well, not the moon moves fast, but these three guys are kind of dogging this area of Capricorn. And of course, remember, anything that goes on in Capricorn is squaring Aries, and Pallas Athena is no exception. But at least she moves through quicker than these do. So it's a shorter term theme, but it is current, and you may notice it even as the time of me recording this and putting this out. Pallas Athena has to do with many things, but one of the things she has to do with is the energy of the spiritual warrior, where you feel like something's happening to you. Okay, so here's your Aries placement. Here's the square to Pallas Athena. She's the sister of Aries. Aries, is the god of war. She is a goddess of war, right? Athena, goddess of war. Everybody knows that. But if you learn more about the energy of Pallas Athena, she's not the same kind of war goddess as Aries is. In many cases, she only went to war when her father made her. She's more of a strategist. She's more of someone trying to use war purposefully, not for the sake of itself, like her brother Aries. Ares is, the mythological association here, and Aries came from that. So there is this energy of like a cause, speaking up for a cause, that could be coming up and could be hitting a lot of Aries placements really hard, where you feel like something needs your voice. And I'm seeing this for myself just with a local community project where there's a family home. There's something going on in our local community that I really don't have the time to deal with, but I see that I have to deal with it, and I've been spearheading something much to my own detriment because it's in this square here, but it needs a voice, and I feel like I need to be involved in this. And you may be seeing the same thing, okay? And this is, this is going to be true for any of you, but you can see as we're talking about this, middle degree placements, that's where I am. It's like hitting exactly at the time of recording here in June, but it's going to be dancing around this area, and any Aries is in fair game for this to be a problem. So if you feel like something's going on in your immediate environment, either where you need to be an advocate for a friend who's not having a voice in a situation, or for something else in your community, or something else that's going on in the world where you feel like your spirit, your warrior spirit, needs to be lent to this, but you have a conflict with it, that's probably Pallas Athena. So this is, you just have to navigate through carefully. And the key here, the must know here, is going to be in you not getting too out of control and excessive with taking on your role, and with trying to look for the solution rather than the war or the fight of it being the focus. Okay, because the way that Pallas Athena makes things rise in a person, it's like this rising voice of, no, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to take the torch. I'm going to bring the light. I'm going to, and that can be helpful. But it can bring out an aggression that, again, can bring this boomerang action. So just try to focus on the Capricorn element of it, and this other aspect of Pallas Athena, which has to do with strategizing. Something else that makes Pallas Athena different than Aries is her war strategies. Okay, so strategizing and implementing, just figuring out and implementing a plan rather than just running headlong into battle. It always makes me crazy when you watch these movies like with the Vikings or with the English people, whoever is fighting, where they just like go head to head. They just start like beating each other up, like people on the front line, most of them go down, right? So it's like, that's Aries energy. But Pallas Athena has more of a strategy where like, you know, they build this pit and then they trap the people and then they fall in, and then now, you know, part of the war is won already because they had a strategy and they didn't even have to fight head on. So that's the difference. So if you can just turn that fire into a focus on the strategy, you might be able to take some of the war element out of it and still reach the productive ends that you're looking for. Okay, so that's for all Aries, and that's going to be a theme for a while. If you want more information to see how you can best use the astrological potentials, I have tons of resources for you. I highly recommend you watch my Mars retrograde resources, especially as an Aries, because these are going to be of exceeding importance for you. If you click on the button, the little arrow button that says more underneath this video, it will reveal the links that I'm about to tell you about. So you can look and get them there, or you can search for them. Search for Annie Botticelli Mars retrograde or look underneath this video. I have a blog and I have a video, and that I also have another blog that isn't linked under here. If you search for Annie Botticelli, Maximizing Personal Planet Retrogrades, and that will give you even more ideas of what you can do during this retrograde time that is in sync with a natural rhythm. You can get written horoscopes by me at cozybysweetstarlight.com. Also Astrology for Wellness and other ways you can apply astrology to your daily experience in ways you might not have thought of. If you want a written version of the general transits, meaning all the sweet dates, all the salty dates, what the aspects are, what you can expect from them, delivered into your inbox in 1 month early, go to anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter, and also receive my 28-day virtual coaching program called Shine for free. So you get lots of free goodies as part of being part of my email community. And if you want free courses, you can go to my school, Luminous Life Multiversity, lumelife.com, L-U-M-E life.com. And I also have paid courses there, including my Become a Professional Astrologer Mastery course. So if you resonate with how I teach and you want to learn, you can see my very comprehensive course there, as well as other courses that are free at lumelife.com. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.